The glowing numbers on my phone screen were a cruel, impossible joke. $0 and 0 cents. I stared, heart hammering against my ribs, frantically dragging my thumb down to refresh the banking app. The balance remained stubbornly, impossibly, zero. The Specialized Medical Trust Fund, a lifeline my family and I had painstakingly built, dollar by agonizing dollar, over 6 long years. $350,000 earmarked specifically for the experimental therapy that offered the best chance, maybe the only chance, to truly manage my rare, unpredictable condition was gone. Vanished. My name is Clara Miller, and in that instant, the fragile hope I'd clung to, the meticulously constructed future I dared to imagine, shattered. Shards of disbelief and a cold, creeping dread spread through my chest, revealing a chasm of betrayal I hadn't known existed. "Mom," I called out from my room, my voice thin and reedy, barely louder than the sudden, violent storm brewing inside me. "Could you come here for a minute?" Her brisk footsteps preceded her, sharp, efficient clicks on the polished tile floor of the hallway. She appeared in the doorway, already wearing that familiar look of weary impatience, the one reserved for moments when my health demanded attention she wasn't prepared to give. "What is it, Clara? I'm due at the clinic for my checkup in 20 minutes. Can this wait?" "No," I said, my voice firmer now, propelled by the burgeoning panic. "It can't." I turned the phone screen towards her, the zero balance a stark accusation in the soft afternoon light filtering through my window. "The trust fund," I managed, the words catching in my throat. "It's empty." There was no gasp, no outward sign of shock, just a subtle, almost imperceptible tightening around her eyes, a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher. That's how I knew, deep down in that terrifying, gut-wrenching moment. She already knew. "Oh, yes, that." She gave a small, dismissive wave of her hand, as if brushing away an annoying fly. Brandon needed it for a short-term capital infusion. His new tech venture required immediate scaling, a strategic acquisition. He assured us it was a golden opportunity. "He'll see a massive return within weeks, sweetheart. It's perfectly safe." My head swam, the room tilting on its axis. He did what? Safe. My therapy fund? The therapy I needed to walk more easily, to manage the chronic pain, to have a semblance of a normal life. "Don't be dramatic, Clara." Her tone was sharp, bordering on exasperated. "Your brother is on the verge of something truly significant. This is a necessary step to ensure his success, which benefits all of us. He has major venture capitalists watching, prominent figures like Arthur Sterling. A chance like this won't come again. Brandon is going to put us on the map, make our name mean something. You let him take my medical fund?" My voice broke, a raw, wounded sound. "Without even telling me, without my consent." "It was a family decision," she said again, already checking her watch, her focus clearly shifting back to her own schedule. "Your father and I discussed it at length. Brandon made a compelling case. He promised he could turn it into a significant gain, more than enough to cover your therapy when the time comes, with a surplus. Dr. Evans said your condition was stable enough to postpone the experimental therapy for a few months anyway. It's not like it's an emergency right now." Stable enough, the phrase grated on my nerves. Stable meant a slow, steady decline, managing symptoms, not improving. Stable meant more pain, more exhaustion, more of my life slipping away. I gripped the armrest of my wheelchair, my knuckles white, the familiar stiffness in my joints suddenly screaming in protest. "Where is Brandon?" "His office. But I really don't think now is the time, Clara. He's under a lot of pressure." I didn't wait for her to finish. Adrenaline, cold and sharp, surged through me, momentarily overriding the ache that was a constant companion. I maneuvered my chair past her, the wheels thudding softly against the polished wood. I didn't stop to knock on the closed door of Brandon's home office. I simply pushed it open and wheeled myself in. Brandon looked up from his large mahogany desk, his face illuminated by the glow of multiple monitors. That smooth, confident mask he wore for the world, the one that charmed investors and impressed colleagues, slipped just for a second when he saw my face, my raw fury. "Hey sis, everything okay? Rough day?" "The fund," I stated, my voice flat, devoid of any warmth or emotion. "Where is it?" He leaned back in his chair, attempting a posture of casual confidence that felt utterly hollow. "Just a temporary reallocation, Clara. We hit a slight delay with the seed funding round for Miller Tech. needed some critical bridge capital to finalize a key acquisition before a competitor swooped in. Stop the tech jargon, Brandon. Stop the lies. Where is the $350,000? He stood up, his hands upraised, a gesture of placating innocence that only fueled my rage. Look, there was this incredible opportunity. A chance to acquire a competitor's user base at a fire sale price. My advisors, the best in the business, swore it was a guaranteed win. A 50% return minimum, Clara. Imagine what that could do. Imagine? I can't imagine anything because you took the money meant for my therapy, you blew it on a risky acquisition. Invested, he corrected, his voice losing some of its practiced smoothness, a flicker of annoyance showing through. And yeah, okay, the deal fell through at the last minute. We were blindsided. But I'm restructuring. I have a new pitch deck, new targets. I'll have it all back, plus a significant profit, before your therapy is even scheduled. You won't lose anything. Dad appeared in the doorway then, his face etched with concern, likely drawn by the rising volume of our voices. What's going on in here? Tell him, Brandon, I challenged, my voice trembling with the effort to keep it steady. Tell him what you did with my medical trust fund. Robert, Mom hurried in behind him, her expression a mixture of anxiety and forced composure. I was just explaining to Clara about Brandon's temporary business arrangement. She's upset naturally, but there's no need to dramatize. Temporary arrangement? I echoed, a harsh, broken laugh escaping me. It bounced off the expensive artwork on the walls, mocking the pretense of this perfect family. He didn't make an arrangement, Mom. He gambled it away on a failed, reckless deal. Now hold on, Clara, Dad interjected, raising his hands defensively. Brandon explained this to us. It was a calculated risk, a strategic move for the business. And you fell for it, I said, the bitterness sharp in my tone. Again, just like you always do. Watch your tone, Clara, Mom snapped, stepping forward, her eyes flashing. Your brother is under immense pressure. He is trying to secure this family's future, to build something that will benefit all of us for generations. Secure it? I fumbled for my phone, my fingers shaking as I navigated to my medical records, the latest reports from Dr. Evans. Secure it by risking the very thing that allows me to have a future? I shoved the phone towards them. My condition is deteriorating. The therapy isn't just about managing symptoms anymore. It's about preventing irreversible damage. The specialist said if we wait much longer, the window for effective treatment might close. Oh, for heaven's sake, Clara, don't be so dramatic. Brandon interrupted, his voice laced with impatience and that familiar dismissal I'd heard my entire life. A few months won't kill you. Stop being so negative. My potential is huge. We're talking life-changing money here. The room fell silent. The only sound was my ragged breathing and the hum of Brandon's computers. I stared at my brother, their golden boy, the son who could do no wrong, the heir to their ambitions. I looked at my parents, their faces a mixture of concern, exasperation, and unwavering loyalty to him. And in that moment, watching them prioritize his potential over my tangible health, something inside me, something fragile that had clung to the idea of family and support, snapped. You're right, I said quietly, my voice dangerously calm, utterly stripped of emotion. A few months might not kill me, but you're doing a damn fine job of trying to. Clara, Mom gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Dad looked stunned, his mouth slightly open. I need to get out of here, I muttered, turning my chair, my movement stiff with sudden resolve. I needed air that wasn't thick with their lies and his arrogance. Don't be like this, Clara, Brandon called after me, his voice laced with a hint of panic, realizing he might actually face repercussions this time. We're family, we'll fix this. I didn't respond. I propelled myself out of the office, down the hall, ignoring the fire in my joints, the ache that was now a physical manifestation of the pain in my heart. I slammed the heavy front door behind me, the sound echoing through the house, a final, definitive statement. But not before I heard Mom's voice, laced with the familiar, infuriating hope that I would simply fall back into line. Just let her go. She'll calm down. She always does. They were probably right. I always had before. The quiet one, the fragile one, the burden. Poor little Clara, always making a fuss about her health while perfect Brandon chased his grand, reckless ambitions. They had trained me well. But they didn't know about the saved voicemails on my phone. The ones from months ago, saved almost accidentally. where Brandon, drunk and celebrating a minor business deal with his buddies, bragged loudly into the phone about how easy it was to secure funds by leveraging family assets, how he could always count on a family loan to cover his short-term cash flow issues, how he always had a safety net because Dad handles the messy stuff. Back in the quiet solitude of my small apartment that evening, I powered up my old, reliable laptop. Opening my email, I created a new draft. The subject line felt powerful, a promise whispered into the digital void. Confidential information, serious concerns regarding Brandon Miller. My hands, which had been shaking violently in my parents' house, were steady now, the tremor replaced by a cold, focused determination. They wanted the quiet, compliant daughter, the one who didn't make waves. Fine. They would see precisely how quietly, how meticulously, I could dismantle the carefully constructed facade they'd built around him, brick by painstaking brick. I hit Save Draft and felt a grim satisfaction settle deep in my bones. Sometimes, the real sickness isn't the one you can see, the one listed in a medical chart. Sometimes, it's the rot that festers beneath the surface of a perfect life. Growing up, Brandon's bedroom was a shrine to achievement. Sports trophies gleamed from shelves, academic awards hung on the walls, framed certificates documented his endless list of accomplishments. My room across the hall was dominated by medical equipment, pill bottles, and appointment calendars taped to the wall. "Your brother is destined for great things," Mom would say, her voice full of pride, whenever I dared to question the seemingly endless focus on his potential, his needs, his future. "He's going to put the Miller name on the map." I was going places too, just usually to hospitals, doctor's appointments, or physical therapy sessions. Now, scrolling through old family photos on my phone, the narrative was painfully clear. Brandon front and center, usually surrounded by admiring faces. Me, off to the side, often looking tired, pale, or simply irrelevant. Even at my high school graduation, a milestone I'd reached despite numerous health setbacks and against my doctor's initial advice. The formal family photo featured them clustered around Brandon as he proudly announced his acceptance into a prestigious business program, overshadowing my own achievement entirely. My phone vibrated, pulling me back to the present. A text from Chloe. "Hey, you okay? Haven't heard from you since yesterday. Mom called, sounds pretty upset." "I'm all right," I typed back, keeping my message brief, guarded. "Just a rough day, dealing with some family stuff." "Worried about you," she added after a pause. I snorted softly. Worried about me or about Brandon's setback? The pattern was ingrained. "Tell her I'm fine," I wrote. The ellipsis I added felt significant. She didn't respond immediately. Opening my laptop again, I navigated through my archived emails. I found an old message from Dad from several years ago. It was the email confirming the establishment of the medical trust fund. Explicitly stating it was solely for my specialized medical expenses and therapy, and was not to be accessed for any other purpose without my explicit, written consent. I'd kept it as a safeguard, a small piece of documented protection in a family where boundaries were often blurred for Brandon's convenience. Rereading it now, a detail I'd missed before leaped out at me. Brandon had been CC'd on the original email. He knew the terms. He knew it was for my health. My phone rang then, startling me, an unknown number. Hesitantly, I answered. "Hello." "Hello, is this Clara Miller?" A woman's voice, cool, crisp, and undeniably competent. "This is Valerie Hayes." My breath hitched. Brandon's former business analyst. The one he'd fired unceremoniously after she'd reportedly raised serious concerns about his extravagant spending and questionable financial practices within Miller Tech. "Yes," I said, my voice cautious. "How did you get this number?" "Chloe gave it to me," Valerie stated directly. "Said you might be interested in talking. I've heard things about your brother, about your trust fund." My heart began to pound, a different kind of fear now, mixed with a surge of unexpected possibility. I sat up straighter in my chair. "About Brandon? About everything," she paused for a beat. "Look, I'm at the downtown bistro on Elm. Can you meet me? Say, in 40 minutes. 40 minutes later, I was seated across from Valerie Hayes in a quiet corner booth. She radiated an aura of quiet competence and steely resolve. She stirred her iced tea slowly. "So, Clara, it seems your golden boy brother finally burned you too. You sound not surprised." I managed, still trying to process the sudden turn of events. Honey, Brandon's been running variations of the same con for years, she said, her gaze steady. He's good at the pitch, the charm, the big ideas. But the follow-through, not so much. Investor money, family money, it all ends up fueling the same ego trip and covering his reckless spending. The failed tech venture. She gave a small, knowing smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Among other things, the acquisition was a pipe dream, poorly researched, and frankly, a desperate move. But here's what you might not realize. Your dad's involvement goes back further than just consenting to this latest stunt. My stomach clenched, a cold knot forming. What do you mean? She pulled out her tablet, her fingers navigating expertly through files. She turned the screen toward me. Spreadsheets, transaction logs, internal email chains from Miller Tech, clearly showing transfers and creative accounting. Your father didn't just consent to this, she said quietly, her voice low so as not to be overheard. He used his corporate connections, his name, to facilitate high-risk loans for Brandon, using the trust fund as implicit collateral. He did this months ago, setting the stage. He didn't just allow Brandon to take the money. He helped orchestrate a way for him to access it outside the official terms, burying the trail. The air felt thick, suffocating. This was worse than I'd imagined. A deep, systemic betrayal. How did you get all this? Like I said, I was his analyst, she replied. I saw the financials, the projections that were pure fantasy, the money bleeding into personal lavish spending cars, vacations, high-stakes poker games, though he called them networking events. When I raised flags, showed him the numbers, I was a threat. He manufactured a reason to fire me, but I made copies. I have a comprehensive record of every questionable transaction, every inflated projection, every lie I could document. Including this, she showed me another document on her tablet. Recognize the signature? I leaned closer, my heart sinking. It was a signature that looked undeniably like mine. Except I knew, with absolute certainty, that I had never signed it. It looks like my signature. A cosigner agreement for a significant business loan from last year, Valerie confirmed, her voice flat. Brandon forged your signature. Used the funds, over $50,000, to cover losses from a previous failed scheme he'd kept hidden. He told your parents it was urgent business financing, he needed to secure a deal. The room swayed, not with physical dizziness this time, but with a tidal wave of pure, unadulterated rage. He hadn't just stolen my therapy money. He had used my identity, lied to my face. Why are you showing me all of this? My voice was tight, strained. Valerie's gaze was steady, unwavering. Because I watched him manipulate and burn everyone around him, investor after investor, employee after employee, and your parents always cleaned up the mess, shielded him. No one ever held him truly accountable. And because, her phone buzzed, a discreet ping. She glanced at it, a flicker of something unreadable, almost predatory in her eyes. Perfect timing. That's Arthur Sterling's office calling. He's one of the major investors Brandon's been courting, the biggest fish yet. He's been getting cold feet, hearing rumors, asking for independent verification of Miller Tech's financials. Given my history with Brandon, he reached out to me for an informal assessment. My phone buzzed then, a notification for a voicemail from an unknown number. Play it, Valerie suggested, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. I put it on speakerphone. Mr. Miller, this is the office of Mr. Arthur Sterling. A crisp, professional voice stated. We've received some concerning information regarding the financial health and ethical practices of your company. Mr. Sterling requires an immediate and thorough explanation, supported by verifiable documentation, by tomorrow morning. Or we will be withdrawing our investment consideration and pursuing necessary actions. Valerie's smile widened, a sharp, satisfying expression. Sounds like the foundation is cracking, maybe even collapsing. What exactly are you proposing? I asked, the full weight of the evidence beginning to sink in. I'm not proposing, she corrected, her voice low and deliberate. I'm offering you the leverage, the ammunition he never thought anyone would acquire. She stood up, leaving a plain business card on the table. My contact information. Call me when you're ready to apply pressure. I watched her leave, a figure of quiet power disappearing into the lunch crowd. Then I looked down at the card. Beneath it was the receipt for my iced tea she'd already paid. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mom. Family gathering Saturday evening. Brandon needs our unified support during this challenging time. Please be there. Of course, he did. He always needed support. He always needed saving. I picked up Valerie's card, the smooth surface cool against my fingers, and added her number to my contacts. Then I opened that email draft, the one with the subject line about Brandon Miller. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment, then began to type, the words flowing with a newfound clarity and purpose. Dear Mr. Sterling, I understand you have concerns regarding Brandon Miller and Miller Tech. There are some critical details you should be aware of, details that may impact your investment decisions and his legal standing. Sometimes the most powerful action isn't a dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it's quiet, strategic, and undeniably true. You have a knack for this, Clara, Valerie commented a few days later, scanning the detailed, cross-referenced report we'd compiled. We were in her home office, surrounded by stacks of printouts, bank statements, financial projections, and meticulously organized digital files. 3 days of focused, almost relentless work spread across her large desk. Almost unsettlingly good. You think like an investigator. People are surprisingly careless when they think their secrets are safe, I replied, adding another printed transaction log, highlighting the discrepancy to the growing pile. Especially when they're used to never facing consequences. Speaking of carelessness, Valerie tapped a key on her laptop. Brandon just pitched another funding round to the Carmichael Group. Same inflated projections, same fabricated client list he showed Sterling. Audacious, even for him, considering the heat he's under. Audacious is one word, I agreed dryly. Stupid is another. How's the family gathering plan shaping up? Mom's still insisting on it, I explained, rubbing my tired eyes. The work with Valerie had been exhausting, physically and emotionally, but also strangely invigorating. Says we need to show a united front, rally around Brandon project stability. She moved it up to tomorrow night, a celebration for his impending success. Perfect timing, Valerie said, a glint in her eye. Let him make his grand announcement. We'll provide the counter-narrative. My phone buzzed. Chloe, can you talk? Need to see you alone, ASAP. I need to step out, I told Valerie, closing my laptop. My sister wants to meet. I think she's finally ready. Be careful, Valerie advised, her tone serious. Bringing down the golden boy can have ripple effects. I met Chloe at the small community garden near her apartment, a place we used to visit often as kids, hiding from the pressures of our structured home life. She was sitting on the worn wooden bench under the old oak tree, looking visibly strained, her eyes red-rimmed. I'm sorry, Clara, she said as I pulled my chair up beside her, the wheels crunching on the gravel path. About everything. About the fund, about him. Are you? I asked gently. You don't understand, she said, looking down at her hands twisting in her lap. It wasn't just about you. Brandon, he's been doing this for years. This isn't new. I know, I said softly. Valerie showed me some things, Dad's involvement. No, she interrupted, finally looking at me, her eyes filled with a deep, quiet pain. You don't know everything. She reached into her worn canvas bag and pulled out a small, unassuming external hard drive. Remember when I had to drop out of grad school? Everyone, Mom and Dad included, said it was just financial strain, that the market was bad, that my chosen field wasn't practical enough. They made it sound like my fault. It wasn't. Brandon? He'd used my tuition savings, the money I'd worked so hard to save, as collateral for one of his early failed ventures. Promised to replace it before I needed it. Just a temporary loan, Chloe, I'll double it. My heart ached for her, a familiar ache of shared betrayal. What? Mom and Dad found out, she continued, her voice barely a whisper. Instead of making him accountable, instead of demanding he fix it, they quietly covered it with their own savings. They told me it was a family sacrifice, that it was better if I just let it go, didn't cause a fuss, didn't disrupt Brandon's momentum. They made me feel guilty for even being upset. She held out the drive, her hand trembling. They thought they buried it, but I kept everything. Every email where he admitted it, every modified statement they gave me, every tearful argument where they convinced me silence was the price of family unity. I took the drive, the small device feeling heavy in my hand, a repository of years of hidden hurt. Why are you showing me this now, Chloe? Because, her eyes met mine, filled with a weary resignation that mirrored my own. I saw your face when you found out about your trust fund. It was exactly like looking in a mirror from 5 years ago. That same shock, that same hurt, that same dawning realization of how little you mattered compared to him. And I'm tired, Clara. So tired of pretending this is normal. Tired of pretending that we're the problem for reacting to his destruction. Back at my apartment, the air felt charged with the weight of new evidence. I plugged in Chloe's hard drive. The files were meticulously organized. A chronological account of Brandon's financial deceptions and our parents' complicity, dating back years before Miller Tech was even a concept. Each folder was a new layer of betrayal, a new instance where he had taken and they had enabled. My phone rang. "Mom, the family gathering is tomorrow at 7, she announced, no preamble, her voice sounding brittle. "At the house. Wear something nice. Brandon has an important announcement about the Carmichael investment." "I'll be there," I confirmed, my voice flat. "And Clara," her voice softened slightly, a rare, almost unsettling occurrence, "try to be supportive. He's under a lot of pressure right now. This is a big moment for him, for all of us." I looked at the laptop screen, at the folder labeled Brandon's Promises, filled with broken assurances and empty projections. "Don't worry, Mom," I murmured to the empty room, the words a quiet promise to myself. "I'll give him exactly what he deserves, a moment of truth." The next evening, I arrived at my parents' sprawling, overly manicured house. The air inside was thick with anticipation, a nervous energy masking the tension that hummed beneath the surface. Brandon was in the living room, holding court among a few family friends and relatives Mom had likely invited to witness his triumph. He looked flushed, radiating a forced, almost frantic confidence. "There's my favorite sister," he boomed, arms wide, his smile too bright, too eager. "I thought Chloe held that title now," I said, maneuvering my chair smoothly towards him, accepting his perfunctory hug while subtly, carefully, slipping my phone, set to record, into the breast pocket of his jacket. It vibrated silently against the expensive fabric. "You're both my favorites, of course," he laughed, the sound slightly strained, a little too loud. He leaned in conspiratorially. "Hey, about that trust fund thing. Water under the bridge, right? Just a temporary hiccup. My new prospects with Carmichael are amazing, Clara. Huge. I'll have everything sorted out in no time. More than enough for your therapy, plus a significant return for the family." "Of course," I smiled, a cool, detached expression I was perfecting. "Looking forward to your announcement, Brandon. We all are." Mom beamed, her face a mask of oblivious pride. "See, I knew you'd understand, Clara. Family is everything." We gathered around the large, polished mahogany dining table, a tableau of familial harmony that felt utterly fake. Brandon took his usual place at the head, radiating an aura of self-importance. He tapped his glass with a fork. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," he began, his voice swelling with practiced charm. "Especially Clara. I know things have been tense, a few bumps in the road, but family is everything, right? And tonight we celebrate. We celebrate a new chapter." My phone vibrated in my purse on the seat beside me, a silent confirmation that the data transfer from Brandon's phone calls, texts, emails, everything, to my encrypted cloud storage was complete. The recording of our conversation was also live. "To family," I raised my glass of sparkling cider, catching Chloe's eye across the table. Her expression was a mixture of apprehension and grim determination. "And now," Brandon continued, puffing out his chest slightly, unable to contain his eagerness, "I have tremendous news. The Carmichael Group is finalizing their investment in Miller Tech. This will take my company and frankly our family to the next level." His phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his confident smile faltering slightly. A frown creased his brow. He mumbled an apology and excused himself, stepping quickly into the hallway, presumably for privacy. I started counting the seconds in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4. "What do you mean, red flags?" Brandon's voice, panicked, sharp, carried from the hallway, suddenly loud enough for everyone at the table to hear. "The financials are solid. Who is your source?" "That's impossible, Mr. Carmichael." "No. I can explain, please just listen." Mom's fork clattered onto her plate, the sound sharp in the sudden silence at the table. "What's happening?" she whispered, her eyes wide with alarm. Dad stood up slowly, a look of dawning apprehension on his face. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my cider, savoring the moment. I said, my voice clear and calm, Brandon's about to learn the hard way about due diligence. And consequences. Chloe's hand found mine under the table, squeezing tightly, a silent acknowledgement of the storm we had unleashed. Upstairs, my laptop, connected to the cloud storage, continued to receive and organize the comprehensive digital record of Brandon's deceit, ready to be shared with the world, or at least, with the right people. Sometimes payback doesn't need a shout, a public scene. Sometimes it just needs meticulous preparation and the perfect moment. The sound of something smashing echoed from the hallway, followed by a choked cry of frustration. Brandon had retreated to the small den, but his meltdown was audible through the walls. "Should someone check on him?" Dad asked, pacing the living room, his hands clasped nervously behind his back. Mom wrung her hands, her face pale. "He just needs a moment to process. I'm sure it's all a misunderstanding." Another crash, louder this time, followed by a string of curses. Chloe flinched despite herself. "Some misunderstanding," I muttered, loud enough for them to hear, injecting just the right amount of coldness into my voice. "This isn't helping, Clara," Mom snapped, turning her worried gaze on me. "Your brother is in distress. He's facing a crisis." "My brother is facing consequences," I corrected, my voice steady. "Consequences because he committed fraud, theft, and identity forgery." "Don't use those words," she whispered fiercely, looking around as if the walls might have ears, or perhaps the police might be hiding behind the curtains. "This is a family matter. We handle this internally." The den door burst open then. Brandon stood there, tie askew, hair disheveled, his face a mask of rage and despair. "It's over," he said, his voice hollow, defeated. "Carmichael pulled out. They're talking about legal action, investigation, criminal charges." Mom rushed to him, her maternal instincts overriding everything else. "We'll find a way through this, Brandon. We always do. We'll mortgage the house, use savings." "Not this time," he interrupted, his eyes fixing on me, burning with accusation. "Someone sent them everything. Financial records, emails, transaction logs, recordings." "Recordings?" Dad's face went completely pale. "Of me talking about leveraging assets, about creative accounting, about covering my tracks." Brandon swallowed hard, his voice thick with rising panic. "About how I used family money to keep things afloat." "Who would do such a thing?" Mom demanded, her gaze sweeping the room, finally settling on me. I kept my expression carefully neutral, my face a blank slate. But Brandon's eyes, sharp with desperation and sudden understanding, narrowed. "You," he whispered, the realization dawning, hitting him like a physical blow. "It was you. You did this." "Prove it," I challenged, my voice low, utterly unafraid. He lunged forward, a sudden burst of raw fury propelling him. But Chloe was quicker. She stepped between us, putting herself physically in his path. "Don't, Brandon. You ruined me," he shouted over her shoulder, his voice cracking with emotion. "Years of work, years of building something, destroyed because you couldn't wait for your damn therapy, because you had to be selfish." "Brandon," Dad's voice was sharp with warning, cracking like a whip. "That's enough, stop it." "No, it's not enough." He spun towards our father, his rage shifting targets. Tell them what you did." Silence descended on the room, heavy and suffocating. Dad stood frozen, his face ashen, the color draining away completely. "Robert," Mom's voice was a tremulous whisper, filled with dread. "What is he talking about?" Dad sank into the nearest armchair, the picture of a defeated man. I helped him," he confessed, his voice barely audible, filled with shame. "Arranged bridge loans, vouched for him with contacts in the industry, knowing the risks were high. I thought I could manage it, keep it contained, protect him." "How long?" Mom whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief and horror. "A few years," Dad admitted, his voice growing stronger, tinged with a desperate need to justify. "Since his first startup didn't pan out. He needed help. He's my son, I'm his father." "And what am I?" I asked, my voice quiet but with the end Chinese letter LIKE edge. "Because you're my father too, but you enabled him draining the fund meant for my health. You helped him do it. He promised he'd replace it," Dad insisted, looking at me, pleading for understanding. "He swore he would. Like he promised to repay Chloe's tuition fund," I countered, turning to Mom. Mom's head snapped towards Chloe, her eyes widening in fresh horror. Tuition? Chloe stepped forward, her face pale but her posture straight, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The real reason I left grad school. Brandon used my tuition money. Dad found out, and instead of making Brandon accountable, he paid it back himself to keep it quiet. To protect Brandon, to avoid a scandal. I did it for the family, Dad shouted, rising slightly from the chair, his voice defensive, almost desperate. No, I said, the words slicing through the tense air. You did it for him. There's a vast difference. A difference that cost Chloe her education, cost me my safety net, and cost you your integrity. Brandon slumped against the wall, defeated, broken. They're freezing my accounts, he mumbled, his voice flat. All of them, everything. We'll figure it out, Mom said quickly, her mind already racing, seeking solutions, damage control. We can use savings, remortgage the house, pull from retirement. They'll trace that too, Mom, Chloe pointed out, her voice surprisingly firm. Any large transfers will look suspicious now that Sterling and Carmichael's teams are auditing everything. Dad's finances are already under scrutiny. This is your fault, Mom hissed at me, her rage finally boiling over, her eyes venomous. All her fear and anxiety coalesced into blame directed at the most convenient target. If you just hadn't stirred things up. If you had just kept quiet. If I had just quietly accepted being defrauded. If I had just quietly let my health deteriorate while he squandered my future. I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound that felt like shards of glass in my throat. Dramatic? You want dramatic, Mom? I have the medical reports, the specialists' warnings, the fact that every delay increases my chances of permanent, irreversible damage. But sure, I'm the dramatic one for wanting the chance to get better. We can fix this, Dad said, his voice shaking, clinging to the familiar family narrative of solving problems internally, sweeping things under the rug. We just need to think. Think about what? I challenged, my voice rising, the years of stored resentment finally bubbling to the surface. Think about how to shield Brandon again, how to minimize the damage to his reputation, how to sweep this under the rug like you did with Chloe, like you've done my entire life, protecting your precious son at the expense of your daughters. My phone buzzed in my purse, a text from Valerie. Sterling's team just notified me. They found the forged loan agreement. It's being added to their formal complaint. Expect movement soon. I smiled, a small, grim smile that didn't reach my eyes. Actually, I said, looking at their stunned faces, it's a little late for thinking about damage control. The process has already begun. What have you done? Brandon's voice was a low growl, filled with a cold fury that was almost more frightening than his earlier hysterics. Me, I said, the words soft, deliberate. I just introduced you to Karma, Brandon. She's been waiting patiently, keeping excellent records of every lie, every theft, every betrayal. And now she's calling in all the debts, every single one. You little, he lunged towards me again, a raw, animalistic surge of violence. But Dad, despite his defeat, still had some instinct left. He grabbed Brandon's arm, holding him back, wrestling with his enraged son. Don't make it worse, Brandon, Dad pleaded, his voice strained with the effort. Worse, Brandon screamed, a wild, hysterical laugh escaping him. I'm about to lose everything. My future, my reputation, my freedom. And you're worried about making it worse. No, I said, turning my chair, propelling myself towards the front door, my movement steady, purposeful. You already lost everything, Brandon. The trust, the respect, the loyalty. You just didn't notice because you were too busy spending the consequences. Clara, please, Mom called after me, her voice desperate, clinging to the last shred of what she believed family should be. Don't walk away, we're family. I paused in the doorway, the cool night air a welcome relief on my skin. I looked back at the scene. Dad struggling with Brandon, Mom wringing her hands, Chloe watching with a quiet sadness. Funny, I said, my voice clear, carrying through the tense silence. Funny how that only seems to matter when he needs something, when it suits his narrative. Outside, the cool night air felt like a cleansing balm after the suffocating atmosphere of the house. It filled my lungs, fresh and clean. My phone buzzed, a text from Chloe. Coming over soon, need to talk, are you okay? Yes, I was okay. I was finally, truly okay in a way I hadn't been in years. As I reached my adapted car parked on the street, one last text came through. An unknown number. Mr. Robert Miller, this is the office of Mr. Arthur Sterling's legal counsel. Due to information received, we need to discuss your active involvement in Miller Tech's financial operations. Expect formal contact and potential subpoenas within 24 hours. The circle was closing. I started the engine, watching their silhouettes shift frantically behind the living room windows. Lights flicked on and off. They would spend the night scrambling, strategizing, trying desperately to salvage Brandon, just as they always had. But this time, there was no salvaging him. There was no sweeping this under the rug. There was only the reckoning they had all, in their own ways, enabled. "You need to eat something, anything," Bates said, pushing a plate of scrambled eggs and toast across her kitchen counter. It had been a week since that night at my parents' house. Bates' apartment, with its worn furniture and comforting clutter, had become my sanctuary. Bringing down your golden boy brother and the family system that protected him is draining work. You need your strength. "I'm not hungry," I mumbled, staring at my phone. The screen displayed a seemingly endless list of missed calls and increasingly desperate texts from Mom, 34 of them since I'd left that night. "Eat anyway," she insisted, her voice firm but kind. She knew better than anyone the physical toll stress took on me. "You have a meeting with Sterling's legal team in an hour. You need to be sharp. They're ready to move." I forced down a few bites of the rubbery eggs, the taste like cardboard in my mouth. What if I went too far? The thought, small and insidious, wormed its way into my mind despite the righteousness of my actions. Bates stopped wiping down the counter, turning to face me fully. "Are you having regrets, Clara?" "No," I said immediately. Then, more honestly, maybe, I don't know, it's just, everything is falling apart. "For them, maybe," she said gently. "Not for you. You're finally building something solid, something real." My phone buzzed. "Chloe. Mom's on her way to your place, just left here. She's pretty volatile, Clara, be prepared." "Perfect," I muttered, dropping my fork. "Just perfect. The timing is impeccable." "Go," Bate urged, putting a hand on my arm. "Face her. You're not the same person she thinks you is anymore. You're stronger than you know." I arrived back at my apartment just as Mom's familiar luxury SUV pulled into my parking spot. She got out, her movements stiff and jerky, her designer handbag clutched like a shield. Her face was pale, her eyes wide and a little wild. "We need to talk, Clara," she announced, her voice tight, following me inside without waiting for an invitation. "About what, Mom?" I asked, closing and locking the door behind us. "How Brandon's holding up in county jail, how Dad's job is hanging by a thread, how this is all my fault for not just keeping quiet." "Don't take that tone with me," she snapped, pacing my small living room, her expensive heels clicking on the hardwood floor. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Your father's reputation is in ruins. He's being investigated. We could lose everything. The house, the security, the life we've built. And I could lose my chance at vital medical therapy without that trust fund you let Brandon steal." I countered, my voice rising, the calm facade cracking. "The life I was trying to build, the future I was hoping for." "Oh, please," she waved a dismissive hand, the gesture infuriatingly familiar. "Dr. Evans said you were stable. You always exaggerate your condition for attention. Stable might eventually lead to irreversible nerve damage and permanent loss of mobility." I shot back, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and hurt. "Stable means managing pain, not getting better." But Brandon needed the money now for his brilliant venture, right? He was going to save the family. He was the important one. "He is building something important. His vision could revolutionize the market." "His vision is a con, Mom," I yelled, my voice breaking. "A fragile, pathetic con built on lies, theft, and the sacrifice of everyone around him, just like everything else about him." "How dare you?" She slammed her hand down on a nearby end table, making the lamp rattle. "After all we've sacrificed for you, the endless medical bills, the specialized diets, the therapies, the constant worry, the way we've always had to cater to your needs. Basic parental responsibility is not sacrifice, Mom," I interrupted, my voice shaking with fury. "Paying medical bills for your sick child is not a sacrifice. It's what you do, but you know what is a sacrifice. Chloe giving up her dream of grad school because her tuition was stolen. Dad risking his career and our entire financial future to cover for Brandon's gambling debts and failed schemes. That's sacrifice. All of it to prop up Brandon's reckless ego. He wasn't gambling, he was investing. It was a calculated risk. Stop lying, Mom, I screamed, tears of frustration and pain finally spilling down my cheeks. Just stop. Stop defending him. Stop covering for him. I have proof of everything. The fabricated financials, the forged documents, the stolen trust funds, the voicemails where he admits it. It's over. He's finally going to face the consequences. She sank onto the couch, her face buried in her hands, her body shaking with sobs. You'll understand one day, Clara, she mumbled through her tears. When Brandon succeeds, when he's the successful businessman he's meant to be, you'll see this was all a temporary setback. You'll thank us. He is never going to succeed like this, I said, the harsh reality a cold comfort. He's facing multiple felony charges, fraud, embezzlement, identity forgery. He's going to prison. Then take it back, she pleaded, looking up, her eyes red and swollen. Tell them you made a mistake. Tell them you exaggerated. Like you told me to mistake my pain for attention-seeking drama, to mistake his theft for a brilliant business move, to mistake your complicity for protection. My voice was quiet again, deadly calm. No, Mom. I'm not taking anything back. The truth is finally out. I'm your mother, she cried, her voice raw. No, I said quietly, the words heavy with the weight of years of neglect and prioritization. You're his mother. I'm just the inconvenient truth you had to manage, the child whose needs were always secondary to his potential. Her phone rang then, a jarring sound in the quiet apartment. She answered it, her face paling as she listened. They're freezing our personal accounts, Robert, she whispered into the phone, her voice trembling. All of them, and they're looking into your involvement. She hung up, her hand shaking violently. Martin says. He says they're looking into his active involvement with Brandon's finances. His company is cooperating with the investigation. I know, I said. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with disbelief and anger. What do you mean, you know? I told them everything, Mom, I said, my voice clear and steady. About Dad helping him access my fund, about the cover-ups, about Chloe's tuition money, about the forged loan. All of it. You would destroy your own family, she screamed, pushing herself off the couch. You destroyed it first, I said, the words cutting through the air. You and Dad, with your endless protection of Brandon, your willingness to sacrifice your daughter's well-being for his success. I'm just making sure everyone faces the consequences of those choices. Everyone pays their fair share. She stood there, her hands shaking, her face a mask of grief and fury. I don't even recognize you anymore, she whispered, as if looking at a stranger. I'm exactly who you made me, Mom, I replied, the truth undeniable. Someone who learned that family was just a word used to shield the favored son from accountability, a word that meant nothing when I was the one in need. He's your brother, she cried, her voice cracking, and I'm your daughter. Funny how that distinction only seemed to matter when it was convenient for Brandon, I said, turning my chair towards the door. She walked to the door, her movements stiff, then paused, her hand on the doorknob. She turned back, her expression hardening. When this is all over, Clara, don't expect any forgiveness from us. Don't worry, Mom, I smiled, a genuine, albeit sad, smile this time. I stopped expecting anything from you a very long time ago. After she left, leaving a silence that felt both heavy and strangely light, I checked my phone. A text from Valerie. Sterling's team is ready to move. Complaint filed. Federal agents involved. You sure about this? Another from Bate. Remember, Clara, you're not the villain here. You're the survivor who finally found the strength to fight back and tell the truth. And finally, one from Chloe. Mom just called me, hysterical. I'm still with you, sis. All the way, whatever happens. I looked at my reflection in the window. Mom was right about one thing. I wasn't the same Clara. The quiet, compliant daughter who accepted her lot, who hoped for scraps of affection and recognition, died the day they stole the money meant for her healing. In her place stood someone else, someone forged in fire, tempered by pain and betrayal. Someone who understood that sometimes, the greatest act of self-preservation is ensuring accountability, even when it breaks the things you once held dear. My phone buzzed one last time. It was an email notification from the clinic. Experimental therapy slot secured for next month. Funding confirmed via anonymous benefactor. I smiled, a wave of relief washing over me. I knew exactly which former business associate, now partner in exposing fraud, had ensured that payment. Sometimes, Karma needed a little help tipping the scales back into balance. The insistent pounding on my apartment door started around 3 o'clock am. Loud, frantic, and fueled by desperation. Even before checking the peephole, I knew it was Brandon. The faint, unmistakable smell of stale liquor permeated the hallway. "Clara, open up, we need to talk," he slurred, his voice a mix of pleading and aggression. I took a deep breath, centering myself. I hit record on my phone's voice memo app before unlocking the deadbolt and opening the door. Brandon stumbled in, his expensive suit wrinkled and stained, his tie missing, his hair askew. He looked utterly broken, stripped of his usual polish. "Look what you did," he yelled, gesturing wildly around my small living room, nearly losing his balance. "Are you happy now, you little vengeful cripple? You destroyed everything." He collapsed onto my small sofa, the springs groaning in protest. He buried his face in his hands for a moment, then looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and bloodshot. "They're talking hard time," he mumbled, his voice thick with despair. 5, maybe 10 years. Wire fraud, embezzlement, identity theft. "Sounds about right," I said, my voice flat, devoid of pity. He laughed, a harsh, broken sound that held no humor. "You know the most twisted part. I actually thought I could pull it off. This time, just one big win. That's all it would have taken to fix everything. To pay everyone back, silence the critics, make everyone proud." "Is that what you told yourself?" I asked, my voice quiet but cutting, "when you took the money meant for my health, for my only chance at a better life?" "Your health," he sneered, his eyes glazing over with a self-pitying rage. "Always about your condition, isn't it, Clara? Do you even want to get better, or do you just like playing the perpetual victim? The poor, sick sister everyone has to cater to." The force of the slap surprised even me. It echoed in the small apartment. My palm stung, but the look of stunned shock on Brandon's face was a chilling, grim satisfaction. He touched his cheek, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Don't you dare," I whispered, stepping closer, the years of suppressed anger and hurt fueling my words. "Don't you ever dare make my fight for survival about your failure and your cruelty. You didn't just take my money, Brandon. You stole my hope, my chance, you stole my future." "I was trying to build something," he protested weakly, pushing himself unsteadily to his feet. "To provide for the family, to make us all proud, to be the success everyone expected. By lying," I countered, my voice rising, gaining strength. "By stealing, by sacrificing everyone else on the altar of your ego, do you have any idea the pressure I've been under? Being the one whose body constantly betrays her. The one who has to fight for every ounce of energy, every moment without pain. While you were blowing investor money on cars and parties and networking poker games, I was counting pills, tracking symptoms, fighting for access to the care I needed. I never meant for it to go this far," he mumbled again, his gaze dropping. "You never meant to get caught," I finished for him, the truth undeniable. "That's the only thing you truly regret, isn't it?" "Please, Clara," he looked up, his face contorted with desperation, reaching out for my hands. "You have to help me. Tell them it was a mistake, a misunderstanding, that I'm not a criminal. Like it was a mistake draining Chloe's college fund, or leveraging Dad's reputation and retirement, or forging my signature on that loan agreement." I pulled my hands away, the contact repellent. "Tell them those were mistakes, Brandon. This is the consequence of years of deliberate choices." He froze, his eyes widening again, the implication of my words sinking in. "How did you know about the loan?" "I know everything, Brandon," I said, my voice firm, leaving no room for doubt. "Every lie you told, every person you stepped on, every time Mom and Dad covered for you, every time they sacrificed one of us to protect you. It's over, your run is finished. They'll send me to prison," he cried, the reality crashing down on him. "Probably," I confirmed. "Mom and Dad, they'll lose everything." "They already did," I said, the words flat final. "They lost it the moment they decided your potential was worth more than their integrity or their daughter's well-being. They lost it backing you." He stood abruptly, his face contorted with a sudden, dark rage, the last vestiges of his charm completely gone. "You think you're so smart, don't you?" he sneered, his voice dripping with venom. The weak, sick little sister finally getting her moment of pathetic revenge. "This isn't revenge, Brandon," I said quietly, holding up my phone, the red recording light a silent witness. "This is accountability. You're just not used to facing it. You smug bitter." He moved towards me, his fist clenching at his side. Try it, I said, my voice unwavering, my finger hovering over the stop button. Give me a reason to add assault to the list of charges you're already facing. Go ahead, see what happens. He froze, his body rigid with frustrated rage, then slowly, visibly deflated. His fist unclenched, his shoulders slumped. I'm ruined, he whispered, the word hollow empty. Now you know how it feels, I said, my phone buzzed. Chloe, police just left Mom and Dad's house. Dad is cooperating. Brandon is officially being sought. It's happening, Clara. Brandon saw the message preview flash on the screen and laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Congratulations, Clara, he said, the venom returning to his voice. You've successfully burned the whole family down to the ground. No, I said, opening my apartment door. You did that, Brandon, years ago. I just made sure everyone finally saw the fire you started. You'll regret this, he snarled, stumbling towards the exit, his eyes full of hate. When you're alone, when your health fails, when you have no one left, you'll regret turning your back on family. I'm not alone, Brandon, I said as the door clicked shut behind him, sealing him out. Not anymore. And my health isn't failing. Not now. I smiled, a genuine, triumphant smile this time. Valerie connected me with a top specialist clinic. My experimental therapy slot is confirmed. Turns out, Karma has excellent connections. I listened to his uneven footsteps fade down the hallway, the sound of his downfall receding. Then I called bait. He was here, I said, my voice trembling slightly now that the adrenaline had faded, the weight of the confrontation settling in. Drunk, threatening, I recorded everything. Good, she replied firmly, her voice a comfort. Send it to Sterling's team immediately. And Clara, you did the right thing, you need to believe that. Then why does it hurt so much? Because you're nothing like him, she said softly. Because you have a conscience. That's why you'll heal, Clara, in every way that matters, and he never will. I sent the recording to Valerie, who confirmed she would forward it to Sterling's legal team. Then I looked at the faded family photo on my desk, the one with all four of us smiling, a lie frozen in time. It had hung there for years, a symbol of something that never truly existed. I picked it up carefully. Time to let go. Some things needed to end completely so others could finally begin. My phone lit up again. An email from the clinic. Experimental therapy protocol confirmed for next month. Funding secured via anonymous benefactor. A wave of relief, profound and encompassing, washed over me. I knew exactly which former business associate, now a partner in exposing Brandon's fraud, had ensured that payment. Sometimes, Karma needed a little assistance, a helping hand in tipping the scales back into balance. That's the last one, Chloe announced, setting down the final box in my new apartment. It was smaller than my old place, but filled with sunlight streaming through the large windows, illuminating a space that felt entirely, unequivocally mine. No family heirlooms burdened with tangled, painful memories, no lingering echoes of Brandon's manipulative voice, no need to keep my medical equipment or charts hidden away. It's perfect, I said, rolling my chair over, running my hand along the smooth, clean lines of the kitchen counter. It was a fresh start, a blank slate. My phone buzzed, bait. Brandon's sentencing is tomorrow. Are you sure you don't want to attend? For closure. No need, I typed back, a sense of quiet finality settling over me. The verdict on his character and theirs is already in. The legal one is just a formality now. Valerie arrived with takeout, a welcome interruption, spreading containers of fragrant food across my new dining table. Have you seen the news? She asked, popping open a container of spring rolls. Your mother gave an interview. It's going viral. Let me guess, I said, taking a spring roll. Still claiming it's all a misunderstanding, a witch hunt. Actually, no, Valerie said, pulling up a video on her phone and turning the screen towards me. There was Mom, impeccably dressed, her hair perfect, but the usual composure was gone. There was a raw, exposed look in her eyes that I had rarely seen. I was blind, she said to the reporter, her voice hoarse with emotion. I enabled him. I protected one child so fiercely, so completely, that I blinded myself to the damage it caused the others. To Clara, to Chloe, she choked back a sob. And now, she looked directly into the camera, tears welling, streaming down her face, blurring the perfect makeup. Now I've lost them all. My family is broken because of my choices, because of my weakness. I turned it off. The raw emotion was unsettling, but the words felt too little too late. The damage was done. Takes losing everything to finally see, I guess, I said, the words tinged with a lingering sadness that surprised me. But the sight is 40 years too late. Dad called this morning, Chloe said quietly, her voice soft. He's doing okay. He's resigned. The house is being sold to cover restitution to Sterling and the other investors. His pension is gone. He said he's trying to cooperate fully, make amends where he can. Where will they go? I asked, a flicker of something akin to concern. Mom's sister offered them her guest house for now, Chloe replied. Until they figure things out. If they can. My phone lit up again, a text from Dad. Dr. Evans called me today, said your therapy is progressing well, said you're responding positively. I know I have no right, Clara, but I'm grateful. And I'm so incredibly sorry. For everything. I read it, and for a moment, a complex mix of emotions churned inside me. But the scars of his complicity were too deep. I deleted the message without replying. Speaking of progress, Valerie reached into her bag and pulled out a thick, sealed envelope. Mr. Sterling wanted you to have this. Inside was a certified check for $700,000, double the amount of my original trust fund, plus interest. He calls it compensation for helping expose the fraud and recovering a portion of his lost investment, Valerie explained. But I think it's more than that. He respects what you did, Clara, taking on your own family, exposing the truth. It takes a lot of courage. He sees that. Neither is letting them fall, I said, the words echoing the complexity of my feelings. It wasn't easy, watching the foundation of your life crumble, even when that foundation was built on lies. A knock at the door made us all jump slightly. Through the peephole, I saw a courier, official-looking. Delivery for Clara Miller. I signed for a small, flat package. Inside was a single, plain envelope. The prison postmark was clear on the front. Brandon, Chloe breathed, recognizing the return address. There's something else, the courier said, bringing in a larger, flat package carefully wrapped. I opened it first, my hands shaking slightly. It was my old childhood art portfolio, the one I thought Mom had long since thrown away, deemed unimportant. And on top, carefully placed, was a drawing I'd made when I was maybe 6 or 7. 2 stick figures, one taller with spiky hair, one smaller with braids, holding hands, beneath them the childish scrawl in faded crayon. Bestest brother ever. My hands trembled as I carefully opened Brandon's letter. Clara, they give you a lot of time to think in here. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months. You sit, you think, about everything. I've been thinking a lot about that drawing you made. Remember I used to tape it to my bedroom door? Right next to my little league trophies, my soccer medals, my debate awards. It stayed there for years. Until the trophies became more important than us. Until my ambition warped into something ugly. I did this, Clara, not you, not your revenge. Every lie, every gamble, every time I chose myself, my potential, over you or Chloe or Mom and Dad. I was dismantling everything, piece by piece, long before you ever sent that email. Don't read this as some kind of desperate apology looking for absolution. Some things can't be fixed. Some trust is broken forever, shattered into a million pieces. I know that now. I understand what I destroyed. I just wanted you to know, you weren't wrong, about any of it. About me, about them. And I heard about the therapy. Dr. Evans mentioned it to Dad. I'm glad it's working. Truly, live Clara, live better than I ever did. Find the piece I threw away. Brandon. I handed the letter to Chloe without a word, my throat tight with a complex mix of emotions, sadness, anger. A strange, unexpected sense of closure. Are you okay? Valerie asked softly, watching me. I don't know, I said, my voice a little shaky. I wheeled myself to the window, looking out at the bustling city below, the endless movement and life. I thought it would feel more final, more victorious. Maybe because it wasn't really about victory or revenge, Chloe said, her voice thick with emotion as she finished reading Brandon's letter. It was about survival, Clara, for you. For me, for us. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from an unknown number. Hesitantly, I opened it. Clara, this is Alina. I know you won't take my calls and I understand why, but I need you to know something. You weren't the fragile one. You weren't the sick one, not in the ways that mattered most. We were. Your father and I, we were sick with our own ambitions, our own fears, our own blindness. And I am so incredibly sorry we made you carry the weight of proving it. I placed the childhood drawing on the windowsill, letting the warm afternoon sun illuminate the simple, innocent stick figures holding hands. The drawing was a relic of a past that never truly existed, but it could also be a symbol of a future, one built on honesty and genuine connection. "What now?" Chloe asked, coming to stand beside my chair, her hand resting lightly on my shoulder. Now, I touched the area on my leg where the experimental therapy was beginning to show subtle, promising results, a quiet thrum of healing beneath my skin. Now we learn who we are without their shadows over us. We learn to build something new, something real. Together, Chloe said, holding out her hand, a gesture of solidarity of a shared future. Together, I agreed, taking her hand, my grip firm. Valerie raised her takeout container in a salute. "To new beginnings," she said. "No," I corrected, holding Chloe's hand, looking out at the city, at the endless possibilities it held. "To truth, however much it costs." Outside, the city hummed with life, a vibrant, chaotic symphony of possibility. Inside, in this space that was finally and completely mine, surrounded by the quiet strength of the two women who stood with me, a sense of peace settled over me. Not because I had won or because they had lost, but because for the first time in my life, I was breathing air that wasn't heavy with secrets, lies, and the crushing weight of unspoken betrayals. Sometimes, the true happy ending isn't about forgiveness or reconciliation. Sometimes, it's about finding the strength to walk away from the poison and keep walking towards the light.